project we're going to work on that I did a couple of years ago, and it's made out of cedar, and I'm going to go through and talk with you about how to build this bird feeder. Pretty neat. We're going to change it just a little bit. I'm going to add glass. It's going to be a little bit more basic than that. So I'll finish up filling this feeder and then we'll get to it. Hey, there you are again. Okay, so one thing I want to talk about is the cedar. The bird feeder that I showed you out there is made out of cedar. The nice thing about cedar is it's really a natural weather resistant. So when you buy cedar and you build something out of cedar and you put it outside, it'll last for years without, you don't need to stain it, you don't need to paint it, you don't need to do anything to it. So it will withstand the weather. So that's a good thing about building out of cedar. So keep in mind that when you're doing projects like this, just a real basic project and you want to do it out of cedar, some decks are really made out of cedar as well because of that fact of the weather resistance. However, the problem with cedar is it's on the rather on the expensive side. So for me, small projects like this, I do them out of cedar, then I don't have to paint, I don't have to stain, I don't have to do any of this stuff to keep it weather resistant. So keep that in mind with cedar. Alright, so we talked about, I showed you the old feeder, I talked about the cedar, and now I've got my basic pieces cut. What I've got here is my two top pieces I cut at 12 inches. Now let me, I'll see if I can bring this a little bit closer. Cedar has one smooth side and one rough side. Which side you put out or put in, you know, what side's going to be seen doesn't matter. That's kind of up to you. I generally like to have the rough look out with it being outside. I usually use the rough side of the cedar out. Another reason, being a bird feeder, the smooth side will help the seed flow a little bit better. So, okay, so with that in mind, I've got my two top pieces cut right at 12 inches. Then I've got three of them that I cut at 9 inches long. And this is the bottom and two sides. Now, here I have my two additional side pieces, which are my uprights. And you'll notice I have a 45-degree cut on here, okay? I only cut one, so I could show you kind of how I laid it out. Pretty basic. I'll tell you that this piece of cedar that I bought was a 1x6, which if you go to my website and look up about dimensional lumber, it'll kind of give you the clue on how wide, how thick that generally is. A 1x6 is generally 3/4 of an inch by 5.5 inches. Okay, so basically what I did is I took half of 5.5 inches, marked out where my center point was, put 145 across there, and then matched up the other 45, and I did that with Speed Square. These are pretty inexpensive, and you can find them in any hardware store. So, and that just flushes up against one side, and that gives me my 45-degree angle. Okay, so when I drew that one out, it just flushes up, and that gives me my 45-degree. Pretty handy tool. Okay, so now we've got our two upright pieces, and I just got done ripping these two side pieces. So when the whole thing kind of goes together, my bottom piece will be like this, I'll have my side pieces here. The other side pieces will go in here. And obviously these will be on top. Once I get that angle, this will be on top. And then these pieces will go on front with a little bit of overhang lip here to help hold the seat in. Now, one thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to angle these slightly and bring them up so that the seat is allowed to travel underneath. Okay? So, with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and cut that other piece, set my angles, and we'll come back to you. Okay, so as you can see, I got my two upright sides here attached. I did this with air compressor and brad nailer. However, as I've done jobs and done my own work and saved the money, I've added tools. So this is a really handy tool that I've used. Brad nailer, air compressor. However, this can also be done with a finishing hammer and just finishing nails, which is any hardware store and very inexpensive. Okay, so now what I've done is I've marked up a ½ inch and in 3/4 of an inch, and then I made a mark where those two lines meet, and that's going to be it's going to generate my angle, because I'm going to flush the other edge of the side piece right flush with the edge of the upright. Okay, so now I have an angle, as you can see. When I turn it this way, you can see I've got a little bit of an angle, so the feed, the bird feed will kind of funnel down to the bottom and come out through the bottom here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and brad nail that in, put the other side in, and then I'll show you the next step.